Hello, guys, and welcome to another monthly meetup hosted by CEMB. I am Ali Malik, your host for the night, and we are once again joined by the brilliant Ana Gonzalez. Ana is an internationally renowned immigration and asylum solicitor. She's renowned for her work, for asylum work for marginalized communities, and she's recognized for her. And I'll just throw it over to her to explain the process at first, and then we'll be taking questions later on. Hello, welcome, Anna.
Hello, hi, thank you. Thank you for inviting me again. It's always a pleasure to come here and speak to you guys. So I'm going to keep this very short because we've done these meetings quite a few times, and it would be really interesting to leave time for people's questions because that's usually why these people come to our sessions. But basically, just a brief talk about asylum and in the context of apostasy and religious persecution. It surprises many people that it's possible to apply for asylum on that basis. Most people, when they think about asylum, they think about conflict. They think about places like Syria right now. They think about political persecution. They think about the Nelson Mandelas of this world and all of that. Those are the sort of the staple asylum refugee images that most people have in their heads, and that's correct. That's part of the refugee definition. But in order to qualify for asylum, you need to show that you have been, or you are likely to be persecuted in your country of origin on the basis of your race, nationality, religion or lack of religion, political opinion, or membership of a social group. So there's a lot of scope for other reasons of other persecutory type of behaviors, like the persecution that those renouncing their religion would have in certain countries, mainly in the Muslim world, but it could be in other parts of the world as well. The people who renounce Christianity or Catholicism in the Philippines would endure similar problems. So I this is CEMB, which is the Council of Ex-Muslims in Britain, and it primarily caters to those who do no longer consider themselves to be Muslims and who cannot go back to their countries of origin for that reason. In my view, CEMB is not an anti-religion or an anti-Muslim organization. I really want to say this because I personally would not associate myself with an organization of this type. But the very sad reality is that in certain countries, just to give examples, the most notable examples would be Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Bangladesh, and others. But those are the main countries that for whom CEMB caters the services for. Are countries that they're just not only unfriendly, but they are openly hostile to those who no longer wish to be religious and want to toe the line. That is the very sad reality of this. So how does this work? If you find yourself in a situation that you cannot go back home and your visa is either coming to an end, could be a student visa, could be a spouse visa, could be anything and everything, could be a work visa, and you are not able to stay here or gain indefinite leave to remain, and you find yourself literally between a rock and a hard place, and what do? So if you cannot go back for fear of persecution on the basis that you no longer believe in religion, you will have to apply for asylum. I do want to emphasize asylum must be the very last resort. It's not pleasant or easy to apply for asylum. The system, Priti Patel says the system is broken, and it is broken. It is broken for different reasons, though. There are different reasons, but it is broken. And there is a culture of disbelief, generally speaking. I have to say that even though the asylum system is very adversarial for most asylum applicants, in my experience, it tends to be not completely unreceptive to ex-Muslims. Many of the ex-Muslim clients that I have had, where if they had a properly prepared case and were properly represented, more often than not, were granted asylum on application. This is very, very, very possible indeed. It's just a matter of coming up with the right type of evidence and to be properly prepared. The Home Office understands that this is a problem. They understand this is a problem. Also, the old political reason, there are not many numbers of apostates, ex-Muslims or otherwise, because apostasy is universal. Apostates applying for asylum on that basis. So that's something that really helps as well. So what do you do? How do you claim asylum? Well, if you go online, if you Google, use Google asylum, it's actually called the Asylum Intake Unit, or how to apply for asylum. It all starts with a phone call. So you make a phone call. Hello, my name is blah. I'm from blah. I want to claim asylum. Okay, Mr. Blah. And why do you want to claim asylum? Because I am an apostate or an atheist or agnostic from country X. Right? So do you have a visa? Yes, no, whatever. You tell them everything. You have to be very open. Don't lie to the Home Office. Don't lie to the Home Office. Just tell them everything. And then they will invite you for an appointment for the asylum screening process. So the screening process, it is usually is something not problematic. It used to be hugely problematic. It's reasonably unproblematic. And what it means is that your asylum gets officially registered. Now, a number of things can happen there. We're not going to get into great detail because we'll be here all day. But the main thing that happens is that they take your fingerprints and they run them through a European database called Eurodac. So if you've been to another European country, apply for asylum or live there or whatever, they will contemplate the possibility of sending you back to that country to pursue your asylum application there. That may all stop with Brexit. We don't know yet, but it looks like it may very well stop as of the 1st of January. But we don't know, we don't have the certainty. But even if it doesn't stop, the European Union are going to make it very difficult. They have already indicated that. We all know why. There's no need to explain why. So if that most of my apostate clients are not in that position. They usually 90% of my apostate clients, they're very incredibly intelligent, enlightened people who came to the UK as students, and they came to the UK, some of them with doubt, some of them were still very religious, and as a result of living in an open society and having contact with people from all over the world, because they're intelligent and open-minded, even though some of them didn't realize that, and inquisitive, they gain a completely different perspective that could just not have happened in the countries of origin because of the way societies are run over there, restrictions on the internet, you name it. And then one day they realize that they no longer believe, and they cannot go back to live a life that they lived before. That's all they knew before, but now they become different people, completely different people. And I've gone through a similar transformation myself, but in my case, it was completely unproblematic because I became an atheist at the age of 13 in 1980s in Spain. Franco was no longer alive. There was a democracy. People didn't really very much care if you went to church or not. It wasn't really frowned upon. So it was absolutely fine. Nobody cared. That was the reality. But of course, if you are from Pakistan or from Saudi Arabia, from Iran and places like that, it is a problem, because if you're not, even if you try to keep quiet and you don't proselytize against Islam or any other religion, you are expected to go to the mosque. You are expected to take part in religious festivals, and if you don't, people are going to ask why. It's not something that you can just basically say, oh, I'm just going to live and let live and do my own thing and nobody will care. Oh, everybody will care very much.
Yeah,
And that will
it's
bring
a way of life there. You cannot live without it. Everybody's
exactly.
going to ask about it.
And this is the thing. This is the reason why me personally, when I argue asylum cases for apostates from these countries, I do it on two limbs. I do it on the issue of religion, as in lack of religion. I don't have a religion anymore in a place that you have to have a religion.
Yes.
So A, and B, also as political persecution, because in a place like any of the countries I've just mentioned, religion is just completely linked to government. You cannot take them apart. You cannot take them apart. And even though some
mandated in many cases, it's stately mandated. You cannot leave.
Absolutely. So you see, Iran and Saudi Arabia, they are theocracies. So that the name is there already there. So it's just run by the sort of the Islamic Council or whatever. But other places, they're supposed to be more secular, like Bangladesh and Pakistan, are anything but. Because in reality, on paper they're supposed to be, but then you get these draconian blasphemy laws in both countries, particularly in Pakistan. And it's unbelievable how the situation has escalated in the last 5 years. And the fact that the people, well, we all know about I'm sure we all know about the case of Aisha Bibi, which is a very internationally known case. But there are also more mundane things about people who were condemned to death. They haven't been killed yet, put to death because of things they put on Facebook, because of really stuff that you see in WhatsApp, that for us
There's WhatsApp, everything.
uncontroversial.
Yeah.
Completely uncontroversial. So that is that, but that's the basis of your case. So I cannot really live in those we cannot live in those countries. This is why I cannot live there. So how do you prove that to the Home Office? Well, there is a lot of information out there. For example, when it comes to all those countries that I mentioned, without exception, if you you don't have to be an IT whiz to find the information. It's there. If you type X country, apostasy, persecution, stuff comes up. Yeah, stuff comes up, and that doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't cost you anything. So that's really good. And what you want to do, what you need to do is convince the Home Office that you're telling the truth, that you are for real, who you say you are. You're not pretending to be an apostate. You know that to get asylum, because you see this is the Home Office. They're very suspicious. Very suspicious. Yeah. So you are guilty for being innocent with them. Always. Yeah. So you see, you have to. Asylum has been so politicized. You have to convince them. How do you convince them? With yourself. People say, but how do I show them proof? Well, first of all, if you are affiliated to an organization like this one, doesn't have to be CMB, could be Atheist UK, could be Humanist Society, could be, there are lots of organizations out there. Or you might not be affiliated to any organization, but you might be on Facebook following certain people or making comments about certain things. So that really shows who you are. Again, doesn't cost you anything. That's something that you can easily do. And something that none of this is really compulsory. If you have a look at the Home Office website, it's all about, oh yeah, and this is what's going to happen. We're going to ask you questions. They make it look like really easy and digestible, but it's not. You really need to be as prepared as possible. If you can have a lawyer, great. That is legal aid for these sort of cases. If you're financially eligible, it is complicated when you enter the UK as a student. I'm not going to get into that, but it is a fact, but not impossible. And sometimes you may have to pay a lawyer. But if you can have a lawyer, great. If you can't, the thing to do is to arm yourself with as much information as possible. Do a statement. Most of my apostates, I don't think I have to use an interpreter to speak or take instructions from many of my apostates, because most of them came here as students. So just do a statement. Say who you are. This is who I am. I came from this background. I came to the UK to do a master's in blah. I loved it here. This is what happened. So you have to illustrate your journey of self-discovery. And this is a lot like the cases that I do with my LGBTI cases, people who realized that they were different, and how the journey to the coming out as LGBTI with apostates is exactly the same. It's a process. You realize nobody's born with a religious ideology. This is something that gets put into your head as a child.
That's right.
Usually as a child. And then two things will happen. Either you will continue with this program in your head or your life, sometimes very happily. We all know religious people, they're very lovely and they're very happy, and why not? Or you will deprogram yourself because something will have happened, because a series of events may have happened, because whatever. Everybody's got a similar but different and personal journey into atheism. So you need to explain that in your words. This is what happened, and one day this happened, and this is and I realized that I could not go back. The genie was out of the bottle. When that happens, it doesn't go back in. That is the problem. Yeah, with atheism, you cannot make yourself believe once you stop believing. It's impossible, because I know that for a fact. You need to explain that to the Home Office. Put it in writing in your own words, and then you will be invited to an interview, and there you will have an opportunity to explain all of that to the Home Office. Right. But if you cannot have a lawyer, do not worry, okay? It's just arm yourself with information. If you're affiliated with an organization like this one or any other organizations, get letters of support. If you go to attend seminars like this today, or you go to, well, now we don't go anywhere because of COVID, obviously, but and it looks like the future is going to be more of this, even when we are COVID-free, because it's convenient. So if you attend seminars or webinars or talks, used to be a lot of action in Conway House and in Conway Hall in central London, which is like a proper hotbed of atheism there. So you see, if you go to places like this and to events there, you will get an email saying, we're inviting you to this, blah, blah, blah. So keep all those emails and put them together for your evidence. Again, that doesn't cost you anything. And that just paints the picture that you're not pretending to be an atheist just to trick the Home Office into giving you asylum, that's who you are.
Okay.
So that's a very, very roughly how the system works. Now, the Home Office might give you asylum or not. If they don't give you asylum, they give you asylum, great, 5 years. After that, you will need to demonstrate that your fear of persecution is still there. If you're giving asylum as an atheist from one of those countries, they're not going to change in the next 5 years, sadly. So, unless you commit any serious crimes, you should usually allowed to remain in the UK. That's all fine. Now, if you get refused, you will have a right of appeal, and you will go to court to fight your case in front of a judge who does not work for the Home Office. Okay, that's very, very important. I'm not going to get into that. If anybody has got any questions, put them to me. But that is broadly how the system works.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for all the explanation. Before I ask you some questions for myself, I want to ask everybody if you have any questions. If you have any questions, please start posting them in the comment section. I'll be putting them to Anna later on. A couple of things. So you said the asylum should be a last resort, and
definitely,
the question is, what's the best time to claim asylum then? If you,
that is a very good question.
Any other way of furthering your immigration history or going through some other channels, is that better, or asylum best time timeline?
Definitely, because you see, there is no, you can always claim asylum. So let me give you an example that is very, very common. So somebody might come to see me with a British partner, somebody they're already living with, they fulfill all, that person has got a student visa that has got another 6 to 8 months to run or something. Yeah, so they've got plenty of time. They realizes that they cannot go back. What do we do? What do we do? So if I identify an asylum claim, I tell them there is the possibility of an asylum claim. If you want to do that, this is what happens now. At the moment, massive delays. I've got clients that have been waiting for over 2.5 years for an interview from initial claim. That is a very long time. Nobody can do anything about it. Lots of delays for administrative reasons, not because of the case. I've got another client, so actually atheists, that they came to me after they were interviewed. They've been waiting for over 3.5 years for a decision following the interview. For no discernible reason. No discernible reason. It's just a maladministration. It's unclear why this has happened, but my personal view is that because of Brexit, all this Brexit debacle, quite a few civil servants may have been resources that have been diverted from this section to other parts of the Home Office. The Home Office is a humongous organization that deals with lots of things in public policy. So an asylum is never a priority, ever. So that is probably why so many people have been left hanging for such a long time. So there's the element of this open-ended, we don't know what is going to happen. So in a case like this, I say, well, if you're really serious about each other, the thing to do is a relationship application. 5 years down the line, yes, you have to pay fees and it's expensive, but it's much more certain, it's much clearer. And if you, broadly speaking, if you tick the boxes and you pay your fees, you're normally fine, usually. So, and that gives you a degree of certainty. So that is usually the best thing to do, but not everybody's in that position. So if you're like an overstayer, or you're at the risk of overstaying because your student visa or your whatever visa is about to expire, the thing to do is try to claim asylum as soon as possible, but try to be prepared. I didn't talk about the possibility of detention. There's always the possibility of being detained in the asylum screening unit. It's not happening very much now because of COVID and because of other things that I'm not going to get into, but it's a possibility. I've never had an apostate detained on application, ever.
That's good. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So if you take something like a letter from yourselves or from somebody else, it's just, that actually gives credibility and protects against detention to a certain extent.
Okay. And what happens in that limbo that you said somebody's been through screening interview, but for their main interview they've been waiting for 2 years, or decisions they've been waiting for 3 years? What happens in between that? What rights do people have in between?
That very depends on the situation. So broadly speaking, nothing happens. Nothing. Cool. So if you are lucky and you are here on a student visa that gave you the right to work part-time, full-time during school holidays, you can continue working. So that's if you make your application before your visa expires. But if you are like many of my clients, already an overstayer, you have no rights to work, no rights. You can study. This is weird because you don't need permission to study per se. But not everybody's got the money for that. Yeah. So some people are lucky and they've got resources and they've got supportive families back home that, I understand that they cannot go back, but, they still support them. Some people are completely disowned by the family, as we all know. So, and in the worst possible scenario, if you haven't got any means of your own and you are completely, which is the majority of asylum seekers because of the way the system works, because they won't let you work, what happens is that you are entitled to claim the princely sum of £33 something per week and get accommodation, sometimes in not terribly nice places, and that is open-ended, and that's something that is mentally extremely difficult for clients, extremely difficult. So that's what happens. There was something else I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, there is also because somebody will ask this, they always ask, the possibility of work. What happens if your case is being outstanding for over a year? Can you work? Short answer is yes, but you can only work in a shortage occupation. So if you are a doctor, and one of my clients is a doctor, for example, he can work. But if you're not a doctor or an engineer or a nurse or somebody that's on the shortage occupation list, and you can find that very easily by just quick Google, you will find it. You are not entitled to work. You can only take work in those professions. But it's mad. It makes no sense. But they give you permission, and people are very happy. Yay! I can work now. I can go to Nando's and work there, or Tesco's. No, you can't, because they're not on the shortage occupation list. No, you cannot.
Okay, so it's mostly like highly skilled work that they allow. Okay.
That we highly skilled, and as in the sometimes you get other professions that traditionally are not seen as highly skilled, even though they are highly skilled. Things like welders. At the moment, welding is in shortage in the UK. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, interesting angle. Yeah. So, and the thing to be a welder is not even it's not that easy. You need to do some qualifications and get like a little license. I didn't know that, until I looked into this. So this is something that is just over and above the doctors and the nurses and teachers, very, very social workers as well. But teachers have had many clients from many different countries that have teaching qualifications. So teachers, there's always a shortage of teachers, particularly in places out of London. So always a shortage of teachers, and sometimes IT professionals, depending. Sometimes they're in the list, sometimes they go out of the list, and often chefs from ethnic cuisines, people to work in. Not always. You have to check the list. So it could be places like Brick Lane, like this, or the Curry Mall up in Birmingham, places like the usual places, but it doesn't have to be there. But obviously you get the biggest concentration of the restaurants over there. So that might be a way in for some clients.
Okay, interesting. It seems like it's not about people, it's about the country, like country, whatever country it is, it's not about the asylum seekers. They've allowed.
Not at all. But it's a silly, petty provision. Why not give people unrestricted access to the job market? If they can work at Tesco, so they can work do care work. Some people care work. There's a massive shortage now. Care work is sort of being put on the list, but with restrictions. It's just particularly the COVID crisis has highlighted how important care workers are. They're always being completely ignored, and they're always, not always, but 90% in the UK, they're not born in the UK, or the people who do care work. It's a reality. We all know why. It's a reality. So they're not particularly on the list, but why not give unrestricted access? There isn't. It's very unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah. And especially if you're keeping them in a limbo for like 3 years, why not? How do you expect people
criminal. That is criminal. Yeah.
Okay. Another thing you mentioned one of the reasons people can claim asylum is on the fear of being prosecuted, or fear of being facing prosecution in the countries they belong to. How real does that fear needs to be? Like, what's the degree of objectivity that there needs to be? For example, if somebody is an atheist from a country, let's say, that's typically Tunisia, let's say, that's to some degree is liberal, but there is also some elements of danger as well. What's the objectivity that you have to prove that there is a legitimate fear out there?
These cases always run on two things, which is on personal credibility and on objective evidence. That is what you need for this, for any case, any asylum case. And in a case like Tunisia, for example, or Algeria, or cases that there seem to be they're not really on the radar of these of these big apostate movements and stuff. It's still very difficult to live in those countries, because even though there might not be that many prosecutions, people make your life a living misery. So the fact that, it's not like Pakistan that you go to prison, boom, yeah. Saudi Arabia, Iran, we know what happens there. But in places like Pakistan, you go to prison for a long time under blasphemy laws. So maybe Tunisia or North African countries might not have laws quite like that. But if they don't get you on that frame, you will suffer on a day-to-day basis, because you will be ostracized. You might be denied employment for that reason. People will not. It's impossible to just to fly under the radar in countries like this. Particularly, they're so patriarchal, and particularly when people are expected to participate in all these events. It's just the part and parcel of life in these countries. So you cannot just basically opt out and sit it out. You just can't. So if the police might not come and charge you for any particular sort of offense, but if society makes your life a living misery and makes it difficult for you to make a livelihood on the basis of your lack of religious beliefs, that in itself is capable of persecution. But you have to make your case really well. How do you prove that? Best thing to do: a country expert report. That's something that we work with for clients all the time. It's just a matter of throwing money at it. Legal Aid will not pay for that for an initial claim, but will fund that for an appeal later on if the case is not successful.
Yeah, makes sense. And where do you put countries like, let's say, Bangladesh, where there haven't been many examples of state prosecutions, but there have been killings by the mobs? And Bengalis make an easy claim, or where do they stand?
Well, it isn't. Well, nothing is an easy claim, but but some countries are easier than others. Bangladesh is more complex from the legal perspective, because the Home Office seems to take the view that if you don't blog, that people will leave you alone, which is not true at all. So you need to get the evidence from relevant country experts. We have a fantastic country expert that we instruct all the time for these sort of cases. And the thing with Bangladesh is also because you're quite right. The government, they're not going to go after you. The mobs do, and the government does nothing about it. So they are complicit. That you get the Jamaat al-Islami and all these people that they're not part of the government per se, but they've got links to government, and the government doesn't go after them. There's never any justice for the people get hacked to death. Hardly ever. Sometimes there is like, if the international community applies enough pressure, there will be a couple of arrests, but nothing substantial ever happens, and these victims never receive any justice. So it doesn't have to be a state-sponsored persecution. Could be something just the society or nasty element of society, and more importantly, that your state national authorities either cannot or are not willing or unable to protect you. So in Bangladesh, they're both, really, because there will be sort of elements of the authorities that might be persuaded, but they're not able, because they haven't got the clout, they haven't got the power. These fundamentalist organizations, they got far too much power in Bangladesh.
Completely. And another thing about convincing the Home Office. I know most of the responsibility falls on the claimants, but is there anything that we can, or the claimant can, expect Home Office to do on their own, or everything has to be done from the claimant side?
Everything. The Home Office doesn't lift a finger. If you look at the guidance, they say, oh yeah, we will look at this, we look at that. They look at nothing. You have to literally spoon feed the Home Office. If you don't, you have to spell everything out and just give everything in a really easy, digestible package. Frustratingly, sometimes they won't read it, but you see, there's nothing you can do if that happens. Well, what you can do, well, yes, there is. You have to go to appeal and fight it there. And as it happened in the Bangladeshi case, interestingly enough, really straightforward case, should have been straightforward, with an expert report. They ignored the report. They mentioned it in the refusal letter, but they didn't engage with it, which actually explained why my client could not go back. We appealed, and the judge was really angry and shouted at the Home Office, what are we doing here?
Right.
What are we doing here? This is ridiculous. You said you had all this evidence. This expert report speaks for itself. It's just you didn't engage with it. That was ground number one. Why didn't even try to settle this? What are we doing here today, wasting time and this man's money? or legal aid money. It doesn't really matter. Money. Somebody has to pay for it. These things are never free. So why we do it here? And the Home Office say nothing. At all. The Home Office representative, to be fair to the representatives, that had not been his decision. He was just somebody who was given the case to present on that particular day. But this is how pig-headed they can be sometimes. You get things might slip through the net. There is an appeal process. They're supposed to look at things again, but they don't. You see, that's the reality. They don't. And that was a very as open and shut case as you would get. Somebody who blocked, somebody who was very public, somebody who was out there, somebody had received threats in the UK, somebody that, all of this had been documented. It was all there. And luckily he was able to come up with the money to pay for representation and pay for a report at application stage. So every tick, 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 tick. And yet he was refused. But I have to say, that's one of the few clients I have had that have been refused.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. I think we'll just start going towards the question. People have asked some questions. Yes, there have been some. Okay, that's from Atheist World. Does UK help people leave their current countries when they are coming to UK because of religious persecution?
No, they don't. And rather disgracefully, when the Asia Bibi, I never know how to pronounce that.
Asia Bibi.
Thank you. Okay, Asia Bibi. When that happened, a number of human rights groups approached Theresa May, and she said no.
Right.
Yeah, she said no. So, and this was at the time she was still on death row, or was she still on death row? No, she had been released, but she was in hiding. She was in hiding. So I don't quite know what happened to Asia Bibi. I heard that she might have gone to Canada.
Yeah, she's in France. I think she's moved to France.
Okay, she's somewhere. She's out of Pakistan.
Yeah, she's somewhere.
But they were going. The mobs. This is another example of mob, as we were talking about. What happens in Bangladesh with the bloggers and others, but mainly the bloggers. This is the mob. The mob were going house to house looking for this woman. The police were not lifting a finger. She had been exonerated by the Supreme Court. And nobody cared. You see, the authorities could have done more, but just didn't. And they knew, they knew what's going on. So Theresa May was approached, and reportedly, she did not want that hot potato. She didn't want to upset groups in the UK. I don't know whether that is 100% true. I don't want to propagate fake news here, but this is what it was explained to me. Yeah.
And also, she might be scared of setting a precedent, because then another case can be made in the future. But anyway, it's a horrible thing.
Very possible. Yeah, but allowances can be made when it suits them. So that is so no. The short answer is no. The long answer is that not really. And often people think, because like in the movies, or Julian Assange, he went to the Ecuadorian embassy. You go to the embassy, and you can't do that in the UK.
You can't.
No, you can't do that. You cannot do that. Look, some people have done it. Okay, people have done it, like defectors from certain places, and it has happened. It's not public knowledge, but of course we all know it has happened. But the reality is there's no policy to entertain those claims, and this is the fallacy and the stupidity of the broken system. That it is broken. Priti Patel is right. It's broken, but not for the reason she thinks. It's just in order to apply for asylum, you have to get here. This is an island. How do people get here? So if you are like most of the audience that we have today, possibly people who came to the UK either usually as students, or they came here on work permits, or they came here as visitors and never left, or whatever, they had a way in. If not, and you're really running away and you want to come to the UK because you got family here, because you've got a connection here, places like Bangladesh and Pakistan, particularly Pakistan, have got massive links to the UK, massive links for cultural reasons, Commonwealth history, heritage, there's all that sort of thing. So, that is the hangover of empire, isn't it? One of the many reasons. So people don't want to come here. They always say, people want to come here, used to take benefits and council houses. I'm sure there will be, some people will, but the main reason is because they have got communities here, and they know somebody here that they might not know in Spain, France, or Belgium necessarily, even though they will be fine there.
Yeah.
How do they get here? So you see, they have to come illegally. There's no other way. They have to come back for lorry. They have to come in those. It's just there's no other way for people to come here. If there was a different system, trying to evaluate claims in countries of origin, this sort of situation would not happen.
Yes. Yeah, completely. And we don't know, like under Tories, how better is gonna get the asylum system.
To be honest
But
with you, I don't think it really matters who is in power, because Labour
really,
did not cover themselves with glory. No, they didn't. They didn't. Because you see, when Labour came into power in 1997, and I'm old enough to remember that, yeah. And yes, there is a picture circulating out there, yeah, with somebody who looks like me outside Downing Street when Tony Blair came there, which may or may not be me. I'm not going to go confirm or deny. So it was all exciting, 1997, exciting. And it was all very good for a while. But you see, it was Labour who brought in detention centres. There were no detention centres under the Tories. Mind you, there was detention and they put people in prisons, which was really bad, obviously. But there were no detention centres. And there were no people. Labour, they always throw blame for really opening the borders and things. I don't understand this. This is the problem when people read the Daily Mail and the Daily Mail only. Okay, you see, this is the problem when because they talk about they confuse everything. They talk about Eastern immigration from Eastern Europe. They're European citizens. Anyway, that's going. Anyway, true, that's going. But they mismatch this with asylum seekers, and asylum seekers are bad. So asylum has become a dirty word, and that's something that really saddens me. I could give you examples of clients of mine who, after their 5 years refugee status, people who are very, very impressive, people who work, had really nice jobs, and they don't fit, according to them, the refugee mold, which, quite frankly, I have refugee clients who were extremely wealthy people. They just basically, they sort of bothered the wrong person in the country of origin and they had to run away. So, you know, I don't think I have to really, I'm sure people can break through the code, yeah? It's just, there's not really, there is this thing that being an asylum seeker and refugee is bad. It's bad. You come here to take from the country. It's really bad. And there were clients of mine who were really gagging the moment they got their indefinite leave to remain as refugees after the 5 years. How soon can I apply for British citizenship? Okay, so this is another 12 months or whatever. Or can we do it earlier? Because, you know, I really don't like showing that I'm a refugee. I said, but why not?
Why not? Yes.
Yeah, no. This is a thing now. And I noticed that in the last couple of years, that never used to be a thing. Because they perceive, and I don't think these are not people that are particularly paranoid. They're really intelligent people, open-minded, highly educated. Some of them apostates, former with connections with your group. Some of them extremely impressive individuals that you would not really, you know, they would not allow people to steamroll over them with the stupid stuff. They actually felt this hostility and that potential employers looked at them differently. And this is the result of a hostile press climate that has been going on for decades.
Completely. Okay, we have many more questions. Question from Mariam Namazi herself. For those ex-Muslims who have been refused, what are the main reasons you have seen for refusals from your cases, and how have you rebutted them?
Okay, so the only way to do that is with evidence. So first of all, you have to see, this is the same with any asylum case. People are not believed. Either they're not believed themselves, or they're not believed to be in danger, or both. So if they're not believed, why have they not been believed? So you need to go to the refusal letter. You have to basically distill the issues that the Home Office had. There could be discrepancies or alleged discrepancies in their interview record. It could be they didn't say enough. It could be that they ask weird questions. Like famously, there was this apostate. It was not a client of mine. Somebody who I ended up in a panel with a couple of times. Very, very nice man, and he was really. He said he was a humanist. He said he just basically identified as a humanist, and they started asking him about Plato. It's got nothing to do with that, and they refused him for that reason. And Aristotle and the Greek and the Stoics and all these weird questions. So, and something like that is just, quite frankly, is pretty daft. Okay, so it's not that difficult to really to rebut. The issue is when the Home Office feels that they have caught them out in a lie, or they believe that they're trying to pull a fast one on the Home Office, saying things they're manifestly not true. They say, well, you have said that you are affiliated with X, Y, and Z, but the reality you have produced no evidence of that. Well, that's easy. So, you just go to the places that you're affiliated with and you do that. And then you go to those organizations and the people, they know you personally and they know that you are an atheist and you come to things and that, you are not just making this up and you come to things for yourself, not for your case. You want them to come to court. You want to come to court, you want them to go there, just do a little letter saying, oh, I know Jimmy, he's an apostate, he comes to our gigs all the time. That's not good enough. You have to go there and say who you are and say, how do you know Jimmy? And what do you think about him? How do you know, do you know him to be an atheist? Why do you believe that to be the case? Oh, well, yeah, because, he's been coming to our things for ages and he contributes and he clearly is, and, his opinions are very clear. And we are friends on Facebook and I see what he puts in there. This is the sort of thing, you just do it without evidence. Then if there's a situation like in countries, as you say, Turkey, for example, Turkey is a difficult country to make claims for, but because it's supposed to be secular, particularly that's the image the government wants to give to the world, to the United States particularly, but the reality is not quite like that, particularly when it comes to women. So you need, again, expert evidence. You need evidence that you can find on the internet, like reports from credible sources like the US State Department report, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, the usual suspects, and others. And preferably, you want an expert on this country, somebody who has got credibility about these issues and is widely recognized just to analyze your client's case. So it's just throwing lots of evidence. So, and if the person has not been believed, we don't believe you're an atheist. And then there could be other weird questions, like I've got permission from my client to talk about this. So this client of mine, also affiliated with your group years ago, says, when did you convert to atheism? It's like, what? No, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So the interviewer was actually nice, but he was clueless. He was not properly trained on this. So he was actually very nice. And he thought the atheism was a religion. And that has happened a couple of times. So I have to, now I warn clients, you might get this sort of line of questioning. You have to explain to them that this is not what happens. So when you became an atheist, yes, where do you worship? Nowhere. It's just, yeah. So that you might get that sort of lack of understanding about what atheism is. Some people define themselves as agnostics. That is not the same thing. But when it comes to the repressive countries, it absolutely is. So it's just a matter of getting as many people supporting your case, people who are here in the UK legally, either British citizens or people with indefinite leave to remain, and particularly if they are refugees, if they've been given refugee status themselves for being apostates, that would give even more credibility. And if you hang out in places like this, there will be plenty of those.
Okay, brilliant. And is that the overarching theme for refusal? You say that male falls in the stories. Okay, and does that vary from country to country? What if somebody's atheism has been accepted? They say, okay, we believe you're an atheist, but we don't believe your fear for prosecution is real. How do you tackle that? Is that based on the country you're
in? This, very much so. Very much so. Some countries, the case will make itself. So if you're from Saudi Arabia, how can they say that?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. If you are from Iran, how can they say that? You are from Pakistan, we've got the blasphemy laws. But if you are from other countries like Bangladesh, that can be a bit trickier because there's just so many. There are Hindus living there as well. There's a bit of everything there. So you may have to distinguish and work a little bit harder and just basically dig on the evidence and show how the objective evidence, the country evidence, applies to your particular case. So it's very much on a case-by-case basis. But the more repressive the country is, the easier it should be to make your case if you are believed to be an atheist. But you have to be believed first. If you're not believed, nobody cares, really.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And the question you asked, like, when do you convert to atheism? I was asked the same question.
You were?
I was. Yeah. And
it's a thing. It happens sometimes.
Yeah. And the thing is, in that moment, you're quite intimidated because you're essentially there with your life in your hand. Your fear of death is quite real in the moment. Or being detained or being sent away, everything is coming to your head. And it's not always as easy to explain everything in the moment. And sometimes you're met with the question that you had never expected. to be asked, and then you don't know how to answer, and then that's where you might like trip sometimes. But usually, if you're okay with your story, it's essentially your story, and you
Exactly.
have that. And having a solicitor, I guess, helps a lot, because
Yes,
they
of
can
course.
help you organize all the thoughts in the moment, because they can help you with how to behave essentially in there.
Yeah, but no, that has happened to other people. There you go. I didn't realize they asked you that actually,
I,
but
they do
that has
that.
happened to about 3 clients of mine. So that's happening all the time, but it can happen, and that actually was with well in meaning nice immigration officers. Not everybody at the Home Office is terrible. It's not true. They're really really good people working at
The
the Home
same
Office.
with mine
Not enough
actually.
of them, but for my liking, but they do exist. These people do exist.
Same with mine. She was the woman was actually really lovely woman. She just
There you
didn't
go.
know about this stuff, and I
Yeah.
had to explain every single thing to her.
So what I did in my case, because what happens is
Mhm.
that when after your asylum you have your asylum interview, I'm sure you know, you have a cooling period of five days where you can make representation. So you will have time to take your notes home, digest them again, read everything, see if anything has been recorded incorrectly. So then you can write to them, say, actually, question blood, this is not what I meant, or I think I was misunderstood, or actually this is what they think. So what I did with my client is I I was really conflicted about this. I don't want to think that I'm taking the mickey or being very patronizing, but I actually sent them an entry from the college dictionary as to what atheism was. So there was no doubt. Yeah, there was no doubt, and that was fine. That was fine. My client got her refugee status quite quickly. After that, it was okay.
Nice, brilliant. The next question is from Abdul Hakim. Ali
Ah,
asked if I can apply for a driving license while I'm waiting for
mm.
my main interview, and I already have a DVLA. I guess provisional.
I see. That's what it means. Then I don't see why not, because you see, to get a driving license, you don't necessarily need to have indefinite leave to remain. And the DVLA, they've got very close links with the Home Office. I had clients in the past that were got detained because they applied for driving licenses and they thought they had properly issued ILR grants and they didn't. And the DVLA always conducted checks, and the Home Office came and got them from home. So they got really close links with the Home Office. So I don't really see why not. I have to say I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to lie. I don't want to make things up, but I don't see why not, because if you have already applied for asylum, you are in the UK lawfully. So to my knowledge, there is no actual legal requirement to have leave to remain in order to get a driving license.
Okay. Brilliant. The next question is from Mohammed. In 2018, FTT dismissed my appeal, that's first year tribunal, on the
Yep.
basis of that atheism does not include acts of worshipping, such as praying or eating certain food, but it's okay to go back and live discreetly.
Okay. That is obviously very unfortunately. So, Mohammed, can you tell us where you're from? That would be very
So
useful to
I
know.
think it's three-part question. The upper
Oh, okay.
tribunal dismissed my appeal on the basis that leaving Islam, converting to atheism, speaking out in support of atheism is not speaking out against Islam and is not blasphemy. Okay. All respect and gratitude to Court of Appeal and saved my life and my freedom. Okay.
Well, okay, it was a happy ending. Okay, that's good.
It was
Okay,
ending.
that's good. That's good. So
Okay.
obviously, somebody will have a brain cell at the Court of Appeal so through this, whatever country it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes you don't believe. You get these judges. It's not just the judges. It's the fact that when you make your application to the Home Office,
Yeah.
if you don't have a solicitor, don't wait around for years and years and be here unlawfully. Apply, okay? Apply. However, if you have to go to court, don't go to court on your own. I'm not suggesting that that's what Mohammed did, but some people do because they think they have to. And if you have got a court hearing and you haven't got a lawyer, that's not the thing now because there are no
Yeah.
court hearings anymore. Go to court and tell them, I don't have a lawyer, please give me more time. And 9 times out of 10, the judge will do it. Obviously, if you do that 5 or 6 times, they're going to see through that and you cannot pull that forever. But usually they do because you see, everybody should have access to justice. And if you show up and just tell them, this is my situation, I'm really sorry, I have not been able to find a lawyer, and it's really difficult, particularly when you haven't got the money to pay for a solicitor privately. And like in our firm, we are unable to take legal aid work for quite a long time because
Yeah.
our legal aid services are completely oversubscribed because not many people are doing this work, and it really breaks our heart but it's just we don't have the staff to do it. That is the reality. That's the reality. So we have a moratorium now for many months to take legal aid work. We can just not take it because the people we've got to do that sort of work, and unfortunately it has to be that way. Otherwise, we would close down, and there would be no services for anybody. They are completely overloaded with this work, and this is work that is very time consuming, and these cases take a very long time. So it's not like you can have a fast turnaround. That's the problem, particularly with the delays. So that is tragic, but it's really good to see that the Court of Appeal really took the right decision, reviewed the decision from the lower courts, and that he got his refugee status, presumably. So
Brilliant.
must have been.
Yeah, thank you, Mohammed. The next question is from Atheist World again. Speaking of mobs, in order to be successful claim, do you need to specify individuals from who are endangered, or you can generalize them? Mob is after you.
No, you don't have to specify individuals. You might know some of those individuals. Many of my clients, they were targeted by neighbors, by people they went to school with, by people that they used to worship with, and they were the ones who actually told the mob, Jimmy is not a believer anymore. Yeah. So and this writing all these nasty things on Facebook, and we have to sort him out. So you see, because that's how mobs work. That's how mobs work. But you don't need to identify specific people in the mob. That would be crazy. That would be absolutely crazy. So you just really need to describe the sort of normally these mobs, they're affiliated to something, usually to a political party or a particular religious authority or an area that might be particularly religious, and and you get your own sort of brand of neighborhood watches in those sort of places. So no, you don't need to identify specific people. If you know people there, great, but that's fine.
Yeah, I guess your main objective is to prove that you are in danger.
That's right.
Yeah, so as long as you prove that. Okay,
Let me say something else as well. Sorry, before we go to the next one, we didn't just to make absolutely sure. In order to apply for asylum, you don't need to show that these sort of things have happened to you. Okay, if you were persecuted in your country or were at fear of persecution, had problems, and you had these mobs after you, or you have issues with the authorities or whatever, that's fine. But very many of my clients never had any problems because they came out as atheists over here, and that is very, very common. So what happens is that the fact that they were believers over there or compliant in their countries of origin, that's why they were fine. And then once they were over here, after they went through the process that led them to them being atheists, that means that they're not the same people that left our country. So the fact that nothing really horrendous happened to them doesn't mean that they cannot get asylum, because you can argue the case on the implication that these things would definitely happen to them.
Right, okay, thank you. The next question is from our own Sayyid Istiaq Hussain Shahoon. What can someone do if waiting for a main interview for more than 3 years?
Not very much. You see, the short answer is that there is a way to actually challenge Home Office delays, but it hasn't proven to be very, very effective. But let me tell you what it is. It's judicial review. Judicial review the delay, and you need to show there is a specific detriment, prejudice that you have suffered specifically because of that. And of course you have suffered. Everybody suffers because it's horrendous. But it has to be like a particularly bad thing. Like if you have got mental health problems that they're being worsened because of this, and you got medical evidence, that sort of thing. Now, this has been really problematic because about a year ago, somebody took one of these cases to the High Court, but to the Upper Tribunal, did a judicial review to challenge. It was the right case to do this as well. It was a child in the care of the local authority applying for asylum, an accompanied asylum-seeking child, and had been waiting for over 1.5 years, 2 years, something ridiculous. And you don't get anybody more vulnerable than that. So it was a child with mental health issues, separated from the family, horrendous, 12 years old, bad. The judge sided with the Home Office saying, oh, they're busy. Yeah.
Right.
So if we cannot make it happen for that, for a claimant like that, we're not going to make it happen with anybody else. So it doesn't mean that we cannot, but it's just, this gives you an idea of the climate and the views that the courts take, because I think there is the issue that they know there are thousands of people in the situation. If they start entertaining this in a positive way, they're going to get thousands of claims. They don't want that. That is my view. Okay, that is my view.
Yeah.
So that's probably, I think, why. However, if you have got, particularly if you have got mental health problems and you have got a mental health condition for which you are receiving treatment, and you have got evidence like Counselor, the Helen Bamba Foundation, medical justice, or whatever, you got evidence that this delay has really impacted you in a really horrendous way, then you have got a case to make an application for judicial review.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Anna. It was really informative. I think before we go, there's been some lovely messages for you in the comments. Reading the discussion, very informative.
Oh,
She's
thank
telling
you.
the truth.
Do we have a chance? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, all the respect and gratitude. Oh, that's for the Court of Appeal.
Which is good as well.
Which is good as well, yes. Anything. So I think by that, we are coming towards the end of it. We had a similar situation in Ireland where asylum seeker from Pakistan was told
there you
that.
go. Happens everywhere. Thank you, Michael, for letting
yeah. So before we go towards ending, is there any one message you have people who wants to claim asylum or people who are going through in the process of claiming asylum?
Be prepared. Be prepared. So be prepared. Put in the groundwork. Do a statement, even if it doesn't look very professional, even if it's handwritten. Put your story out there. You are your best evidence. People often approach me and in these forums or privately or come to my office and they say, how can I absolutely, they want a bulletproof way of winning their asylum case. Well, there isn't one, unfortunately. There isn't one. But the reality is that you are always, do not underestimate how important, how good you are as evidence. You are your best witness. You are the person who's going to make your case. You don't need somebody, you don't need me to argue the case. Oh, it's helpful if I do it for you, but the information comes from you. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how beautiful I put beautifully I set out your case in representations. If you don't really convince the Home Office on the day, you're not going to get your asylum. So just basically, you have to empower yourself as a witness.
Thank you so much for your time, Anna. You were brilliant as always, and all the information is going to help a lot of people. And people, if anybody would like to get in touch with Anna, all the details are in the description, or they can be found on our CEMB's page. Just before we log on, a couple of announcements. We do sport work. CEMB does a monthly sport group. If you are looking for some emotional support or peer-to-peer support, please send an email to hello@exmuslim.org.uk, and you'll have to book a place in the sport group to do that. Our next monthly live stream is going to be on 17th of November next month, which is a Tuesday at 7 o'clock, same time. And that will be Mariam Namazi herself talking about the ex-Muslim movement. Don't miss that. We'll be there, and I'll be hosting Mariam there as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Anna, once again.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.